Welcome to the Newton Series, everybody. Week 4. I cannot believe it's week 4. But let me tell you, it's feeling much better than week 3, and I hope you all are feeling better as well. We are in for a treat tonight. We have heard so far from this semester from 2 Cal grads, which is quite unusual that we have so many Cal grads. Diane Green was with us talking about founding VMware and virtualization. Last week, Ryan Peterson joined us talking about Flexport and disruption in the shipping industry. So we've had quite an interesting array of disruption. Today, we are joined by the 2 most intriguing people I know who are also Cal grads, and they will be introduced in just a moment. They are the best connectors I know, but you'll get this phenomenal perspective on not only what it takes to be disruptive in founding a company, but also investing in a company. And I will let our student introducers take it away.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Lily. I'm a junior here at UC Berkeley, and I'm currently studying analytics and data science.
And hello, my name is Dylan. I am a third year here at Cal, studying applied mathematics and soon to be data science, so we'll see how that goes. All right, so I have a hypothetical question for everyone. Who here thinks that they can run a startup better than most Berkeley undergrads? Okay, fair enough. It's a pretty high bar setup. Who here thinks that they can run a startup better than a high schooler? All right, I got some hands up. Who thinks they can run a startup better than a middle schooler? Surely, we're at Berkeley, right? We have talent here. All right. Well, I thought I can run a startup better than a middle schooler until I found out that one of our speakers today, Jess here, started coding and building websites when she was in 5th grade. And then a few years later, started a server hosting business that generated 6-figure revenue. And that's insane. That's super impressive. I was not this locked in when I was in middle school. All right, I have another one for you guys. Imagine this. You're a VC, and there's this super controversial startup that everyone's talking about. They're trying to raise a Series B and break into a centuries-old sector of the transportation industry. And they're on the verge of being banned in over 30 cities. So this is absolutely wild. Who would promote their VC to invest in this company? Who would invest more than $1 million for this company? Okay, I was going to go all the way up to 25 million, but it's like no one's going to support this. So this is actually the exact position 14 years ago that our other speaker, Shervin here, had the situation with. And he was actually one of the strongest supporters for Uber. So this is the exact situation that Uber was in. And he ended up supporting or being the biggest supporter of this $26 million investment from Menlo Ventures. And he even doubled down and contributed his own money. And obviously, his bet paid off today because now Uber is worth more than $200 billion. So today, we get to see 2 sides of entrepreneurship. One side is building disruption, and the other side is detecting disruption. One speaker is the personification of the entrepreneur spirit, launching multiple businesses since she was in middle school. And the other immigrated from Iran, building network and his career from the ground up, eventually becoming one of today's most influential VC titans.
Jess's career has always been defined by boldness, as well as her confidence and drive to accomplish unheard of goals. Like Dylan previously mentioned, Jess had already made her first 6 figures before she was able to legally drive a car. She then reached a crossroads in the pursuit of education and career success, but ultimately chose to focus on academics in a very unique way via dropping out of high school to start college. She eventually got her start at Cal. She was the president of the Computer Science Undergraduate Association. She founded TEDx at Berkeley. She was the youngest woman accepted into her Y Combinator cohort, and also while at Berkeley, she founded the company that established her eminence in the startup world and how she got into Y Combinator, InDinero. She also was the youngest to complete the Harvard Business School President's Program. Her current business, Mawe, is inspired by the challenges Jess faced in previous company cultures and her drive to continue to set precedents. Her work today fuses venture capital and private equity with innovative and impact-driven business development to empower the next generation of entrepreneurs.
On the other hand, we have our other speaker, Shervin, who started his career in entrepreneurship by founding WebOS, an early attempt to move desktop functionality to the web. His ability to spot trends early on let him bet heavily and quickly gain reputation in the world of VC. First, he was a managing partner at Menlo Ventures, and he led early-stage investments for Uber, Tumblr, Warby Parker, and Postmates. On top of that, he was a managing director and co-founder of Sherpa Capital, investing in companies like Airbnb, Slack, Robinhood, Instacart, and Fiverr. And he even doubled down on quite a few of his bets, being an angel investor for companies like Uber, Postmates, Dollar Shave Club, and DoorDash. So if you want an inside look on how VCs think and how they operate, as well as try to get a few tips on how to bet on the next generation of unicorns, you might have something to learn from him today.
Both Shervin and Jess have had complex and truly unique paths to success over the last 15 to 20 years. But their stories unite in their shared drive to shake up their industries. Jess disrupted her industry much earlier than many of us could say we knew what our strengths were. Shervin, on the other hand, had the ability to closely understand and scale the goals of some of the most iconic brands that we know in the market today. By the end of this conversation, you'll see not just how disruption happens, but what it takes to seek it out and to recognize it, and even find your place in that story. And we hope that you take away so many strengths and amazing tidbits to take on to your next ventures and experiences. And without further ado, please give us a round of applause in introducing Jess and Shervin.
Do a picture at the end, if that's all right. Sure, yeah.
Hey guys, what's up?
Hi.
Go Bears, what's going on? I'm really excited to be here because I actually was in this class as a senior. I actually, I remember this was my favorite class. Isn't it the best? I mean, it's so easy. It's just all fun and all upside, right? It's just it's pass fail, right? It's not graded, Ada.
People might want it graded, but yeah, it's pass fail. Oh, sorry, I'm going through here, and we're going back to sit there. There we go. That slide was so busy. Shervin, I can't even put your stuff on a slide. It's like all over the place. You've just done an incredible amount. It is so fun to host you for your second time here. And you all may not know this, and I think my mic isn't on. There you go. Is that better? Yes. Jessica's actually the longest or has had the most repeat performances. I know there's some better way of saying that. This is your 4th time at the Newton Series. Which is a big deal, by the way. Hey, maybe a round of like Go Bears, a little applause. As Jessica said, she was literally sitting in your seats. Actually,
My favorite seat was like the 2nd or 3rd row right here. Yeah.
Oh, why was that your favorite seat?
Because I'd pay more attention than if I was in the back row, I thought. And I just wanted to feel like I was feeling the energy of the speaker. And I thought about how I wanted to hang out with every single speaker. So my thing was I would just wait after class and like try to get everyone's email address and phone number. And I would think about who are all the most baller Cal grads who I would love to meet. And Shervin obviously was on the list, and we became friends my senior year. I remember distinctly being right outside of iHouse, and Shervin was willing to talk to me on the phone. I'm like, oh my God, like, why is he talking to me? Why is he willing to do this? And what I realized is that Cal grads, no matter how successful and impressive as they may be, they want to talk to you. Take advantage of that while you can. And I'll always remember Shervin's generosity and kindness back when I was a nobody. So thank you.
What year was that? Like 2000?
2010
or 11?
2000, yeah.
What was it like on the other side of that phone? And what kind of phone do you think it was?
It was an early iPhone for me. I don't know what you probably had an iPhone.
Probably iPhone 1, yeah.
No, obviously, like when you can hear in her voice right now, just the intelligence and the drive. And I seem to have, and I'll tell some stories about this, but it really started at Berkeley, a weird knack for spotting talent. And so, I was very comfortable speaking to her because, like someone in this room is going to build a multi-billion-dollar company for sure. Like the probability of one of you doing that is very high. That's why I'm here. Which one is it? Oh, there we go.
I like that.
And so I put myself out there, and I've done that from the beginning. But when I started my first company here, I recruited like 15-year-old Anthony Castellana, who became, and I gave him a server 2 years later to start Squarespace. He's now a billionaire and one of my best friends. But I saw the talent in her. It was obvious that she was going to go far, and she did.
It's fascinating because there's over a decade difference in when you all graduated, and it was quite a different atmosphere. Shervin, since you graduated just a bit earlier, last
1997.
century, like I did also.
Yeah.
But what was it like at the time? What were you doing? I mean, you were super involved in stuff. I think you thought you were going to go down a path that you ended up not necessarily going down. Can you kind of set the stage, like what it was like when you were here? Because I think it's hard to imagine.
Well, I'll rewind a little bit just to explain how I ended up at Cal. My family, we escaped the revolution war in Iran. So, and I do a lot of work on Iran freedom stuff we'll get to later. But we had to escape. We came to America with $35. Dad drove a taxi. Mom was a maid. But they were.
It was. I just want to. It was a revolution. It was nasty.
Oh yeah, they were going to kill my dad. My dad was on the execution list because he was head of radio and television for the Shah, and he had his master's. We came to America in 1976 when I was 2, and he got a scholarship, and we came to America for 2 years. Unfortunately, we went back 1978 when he got his master's, and then he was promoted head of radio and television. He made a pretty brave decision to put the foreign language broadcasts, kind of like the movie Argo is kind of my dad's story is weaved in there too. Is he helped put the foreign language broadcasts for the embassies, and years later when Obama appointed me to the Fulbright board, I saw State Department memos with my dad's name, and he was pretty courageous. People come up to me at different talks and say, "Your dad saved our family's life," and all. So he had to go underground and escape. So it was pretty dramatic stuff happening in my life at a very young age. And we didn't know if we were going to ever see him again. I woke up at like 4 a.m, hearing my brother crying, and he had disappeared for 10 months hiding. And he came to the door to say goodbye because it was the night that he was going to escape. And he did. And then we followed a couple years later, but the Iran-Iraq war started, bombs were falling. So like the beginning of my life was like full of revolution, bombs, not knowing if I was going to ever see my father again. I didn't see him for 2 years. And so when we were reunited in America, we were so grateful to be together again. And, my fund is called Sofra Capital because, funny enough, Sofra is a Persian word for a blanket, a circular blanket like this that you sit and have dinner on. And I remember talking to one of my mentors, and I was like, after I had succeeded, and I was like, all I want is to go back to that Sofra when we had nothing. But my mom would wait until he finished his taxi, shift late at night. And she was the best Persian. If anyone loves Persian food, my mom was the best Persian cook ever. And so we would be hungry waiting for him, and we'd have this amazing Persian feast when he came home. And we had love. We were poor, but we were rich in love. And I realized later, with any amount of success, the money doesn't actually give you happiness. It's love, it's family, it's fellowship, it's community. And that's why we call the fund Sofra Capital. So anyway, so fast forward, I come to America. I don't know English, and in English for speakers for other languages, ESOL. And then within a year, I get in Gifted and Talented, learn English, get in Gifted and Talented. Then I get tested, and they pick 100 guinea pigs, basically, to go to a magnet school. And we got bused to a school 3 hours a day, bused 1.5 hours each way to the first Eastern magnet and then Montgomery Blair magnet, which is one of the top math and science magnet schools. So I begged my parents for an Apple IIc. They couldn't afford it. So my dad worked 3 months overtime, the taxi shift to make $3,000 to buy me an Apple IIc, wrote my first code on it. The magnet school exposed me to all kinds of new technologies. I wrote a letter to Steve Jobs proposing a new design for the Macintosh. Years later, when I launched on the iPhone, I told him that story, and I was like, I'm still waiting for a response. And he laughed. And so that exposed me to the emerging kind of PC era initially in the 80s. And then that school, I won like a science fair project. I discovered a new type of peptide in salamanders, because when I was a kid, I was like a nerd, obviously, and but I was fascinated with frogs and salamanders. So I would collect them, and I remember when you pick up a salamander, the tail would drop, and I was like, well, it must have some kind of protection against infections. And I discovered this peptide, and that helped get me into Berkeley, and I ended up with Dr. Tyrone Hayes here. Does anyone know him?
I don't know Tyrone Hayes.
Okay,
Do you know Professor Hayes?
He's a very short, dresses up like Prince. He's a African American professor in molecular cell biology, expert on frogs and reptiles. Anyways, he was my kind of sponsor here, and I had an amazing experience at Berkeley.
You did a bunch. I mean, I think you have at least four patents to your name also.
More, but yeah.
Yeah. But who's counting? But you also, I thought it was really interesting that I thought that you were studying maybe with the interest in being a doctor.
Yeah. So when you're Persian parents, if anyone Persian in here, yeah, the doctor. They all, my mom and dad want you to be a doctor. I was very interested in being a doctor, and I wanted to, but I wanted to start a genetics company. So I wanted to go to medical school, do MD, PhD, start a genetics company. I, basically thought, from my science fair project that maybe I could start a biotech company. And Berkeley transformed my life because they gave me I was at Lawrence Berkeley Labs and at Dr. Tyrone Hayes' labs at MCB. And I had this idea that I could use that peptide to selectively lyse malaria-infected red blood cells. So and also TB and cancer. And then it turned out I was right on the malaria side. So Berkeley actually filed a patent when I was like 19. And then I met with the technology licensing office. They gave me a mentor for Cooley Godward, who was like, you could start a company. And I was like, how do I start a company? And I met with an angel investor, and they said, when are you going to IPO? And I was like, what's an IPO? I had no business skills at the time. And then
perplexity to ask how to do stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And then and then 1994, the browser came out. I was in the computer lab doing my research, and then I went in and I saw NCSA Mosaic for the first time. This is the browser that Mark Andreessen, Max Levchkin at University of Illinois, Champaign, is that how you say it?
Yeah. It sounds much nicer than
this sounds fancy. Created and released, and I just remember I had this moment that probably all of you had with ChatGPT the first time you used it, where the whole world changed for me. I realized in '94 when I saw that browser, everything just changed. The world is about to be rocked by the internet. And back then when I was doing research, you had to go into like LexisNexis to go to a library, and there was microfiches. You're like trying to find information, and suddenly it's like the whole world is at your fingertips. It rocked my brain, and I had this idea because I read everything I could of Bill Gates and Larry Ellison. Like I would read everything I could about. They were my like tech heroes at the time. This is in the '90s. And I was studying how did they build Microsoft or Oracle and so on, and Steve Jobs, of course, and studied every book, read every book, and I had this epiphany that the internet was going to disrupt the software market. This is like 94, 95, and that all software will go to the cloud.
This is at a time, I just want to set the stage, where most people didn't have a computer. I mean, I don't think at work, and we had one computer that we used at work for the floor.
Yeah, it was like a PC. It was a big stationary, epiphany. If someone had a laptop, they were like super rich, or they worked for a corporation that bought it for them, and they were like they were like bricks. Mm-hmm. The only cell phones were bricks. They were gigantic, so you never saw a cell phone. No one had that. There's advantages to that old world. Of course, there's some nostalgia for it, but I don't want to go back to that. Like, are you kidding me? I want information. I want to know what's going on, and I want to affect change in real time. So anyways, so I had that epiphany. I created WebOS, and I broke my parents' hearts because senior year of college, I started WebOS. It stands for Web Operating System. So my thinking was like, I knew the DOS story for Bill Gates, and I was like, okay, he went and basically bought DOS for $50,000 from that poor sucker that sold it to him when he had the IBM deal, and they were waiting for to make that deal. He didn't actually have DOS. He bought it, and then turned around and did that epic licensing deal that made Microsoft now a $4 trillion company. And I realized, like, oh, wait a second, this could disrupt Windows operating systems, PC operating systems. We could create a web-based operating system that runs all applications. So then I went around the world, and I was like 22, 23. I met my my college sweetheart, senior year of college. She was also a nerd, and we fell in love. And we got married, and I had my son at 23. So suddenly, like, I have a 3-month-old kid while starting a company, and I'm like trying to raise money, and I'm trying to recruit top talent. So I was reading a book about Jamie Dimon and Citibank and it said something about Jamie Dimon and how brilliant he was, and I looked at it, and I then read a Business Week article that said he got fired by Sandy Weil. I was like, what an idiot! Who fires Jamie Dimon? And it said he's in an office by himself with his longtime secretary. So I call 411. This is one of my mantras that I'll leave with you guys, which is the answer is always no until you ask. And this is what Jess did in reaching out to me. The answer is it's just a math formula. If you're not asking, it's 100% no. But as soon as you ask, there's a probability of a yes. So ask. So I call 411. In New York, and I'm like, could I have the number for Jamie Dimon?
411 is...
oh, yeah, sorry. I'm assuming you know what 411...
It's basically how you can get a telephone number.
Yeah. Before the internet, it was like, you want to get a number, you call 411. So I call 411. I was in my childhood room.
It's like Apollo.
Yeah. And I was like, can I have the number for Jamie Dimon? And they go, hold, please. And then it rings, and someone answers, and I'm like, could I speak to Jamie Dimon? And the voice goes, this is him. And I'm like, oh, shit. I didn't think, the most powerful guy in banking was going to answer his own phone. So I'm like, Mr. Dimon, I knew I had 60 seconds. So I said my pitch on WebOS and why I thought it was important. And he goes, that's a really good idea. Come to New York, let's have dinner. And he wrote my first $50,000 check in my first startup, and that changed my life. Because when you're going to raise money and you're like, Jamie Dimon's an investor, that would be like you saying like Sam Altman or Elon put a check in, today.
So it's interesting. When Diane came and spoke, she talked about when you're disrupting an industry, which this was a quite disruptive technology, you need to put it in a way that sounds more practical, not so disruptive. How did you talk to Jamie Dimon about it? Because he's in finance, banking.
Yeah. I guess my one of my big messages for today is you are not at this place at this moment in human history to do anything small. What a waste of your life if you do something small. Like you're at the best institution in the world. This is where AI basically started. This is where the internet started. We changed the world at this university. And to have the resources you have, to live in the most important time in human history, at the cusp of ASI, Advanced Superintelligence, forget about AGI, we're talking about Advanced Superintelligence. The entire world is going to change. I do a lot in AI and quantum computing. Like, this is civilizational change. And it's not the world is going to change, our civilization is going to change. And so don't do anything small. Ask for help. And go for the biggest ideas. And if you're not the actual, I'll talk about like founders like Elon and what makes them tick, and why I look for those types of founders like Travis and so on. If you've got that right stuff, then absolutely go for the biggest idea. If you don't, go work for them and help them change the world.
While you were somewhat nerdy in the lab, founding a journal, using 411 to get Jamie Dimon. Not nerdy, not necessarily in the lab. Totally cool, connecting with everybody. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about your time at Cal. And I invite all those people who are on the floor over there to get out of your comfort zone and come sit in the front row.
Front row.
Yeah, when I was at Cal, my thought was, how do I meet as many Shervins as possible, and how do I connect with them, and build actual authentic relationships? And I decided to be president of the Computer Science Undergrad Association, so I had an excuse to bring in amazing speakers. So at the front of the classroom, I just went right on the whiteboard, oh yeah, I've got Sam Altman coming in to speak. He's going to pay for pizza. Who wants to come? And that's how I first met Sam Altman, for example. And I did that with a bunch of other folks. And that was my entire senior year.
And you also were taking classes, and maybe it's fascinating to me how you met people, and the story also with your first co-founder.
Yeah, I wasn't a very good student. You were a good student or a good academic? Okay, so Shervin's a lot smarter than I am. I did not focus on academics while I was here. I was definitely in the lab a lot. I spent late nights on campus. I won one of those business plan things, competitions, and so they gave us free office space in McLaughlin Hall. So I would sleep in McLaughlin Hall a lot, so I didn't have to go commute all the way back to iHouse. Yeah, very far commute. No, not really.
Didn't have scooters.
No. I had a bike at the time, and I knew I wanted to go into startups. I knew I wanted to, do business stuff. So that's why I was studying computer science. I was the LNS computer science major, and I had to juggle the class load with, running a club while also getting TEDx Berkeley off the ground. And TEDx Berkeley, I think, is still a thing, right? Has anyone been at TEDx Berkeley? So yeah, at the time, TED was a big deal. They started this TEDx program, and I thought, why don't we get TEDx going? I'll have another excuse to invite amazing speakers onto campus, and it's still a thing now, 15 years later. So I'm really happy about that.
When you graduated, did you already have the kernel of your idea for InDinero?
Yeah, I did, but I think the important thing is that ideas change a lot, and I knew that would only be my first idea. Since then, I've started many, many more companies. Shervin you probably started over 10 companies now. And I think it's important to know that the first business might not be what you're going to be working on in a decade later, and that's okay. The scale and ambition of ideas will just get better over time. But I think Elon talks about how, actually I talked to Luke Nosek about how he said Elon told him how you kind of start with an easier idea and then work your way up. Elon didn't go to SpaceX and Tesla out of the gate, right?
Yeah. Map company, online map.
Yeah, but how about for you? Your business has got more and more complicated as well.
Yeah, WebOS was a really big idea, and I learned a lot of lessons from it. But the biggest thing I learned was how to recruit talent. So my first hire was Zeki Mokhtarzada, who was 18 years old, and I then gave him a server as well. 2 years later, he started Webs.com, which became Vistaprint, and I became president, chief operating officer, and helped him build and scale that. And then Anthony started, Squarespace, and then I recruited 2 Swedish developers and ended up building Gmail. They were 18, 19, and you notice they're all young. The most brilliant people in the world are tend to be pretty young. So you should have no excuse. You should never make excuses that, I'm at Berkeley, I'm an undergrad, I can't change the world. Yes, you can. This is the time for you to change the world. And most Nobel Prize winners, by the way, I got such a kick out of those Nobel Prize the signs for the parking. I was like, that is the best flex I took pictures of. I'm going to post them. There's 7 different signs for Nobel Prize winning Berkeley, like how many universities have 7 Nobel Prize winners?
I think Berkeley has the largest number of Nobel laureates.
Yeah, that's pretty badass. Anyways, I thought that was quite a flex. But most Nobel Prize winners have their greatest ideas that end up leading to a Nobel Prize in their 20s. You peak, intellectually at like 26. So your greatest ideas are going to happen right now. There's a reason why Michael Dell, Bill Gates, Zuckerberg all started these trillion-dollar, enterprises when they were 18 years old.
One thing, and I'm going to open it up to questions for you all. So get ready, and Haley and Taiba, get ready to pass those mics as well. But when you disrupt, you break things. You make mistakes. You learn hopefully from them. You all are so authentic and transparent about things. I was just wondering if you could share with us some things that were disruptive, where you made mistakes, and how you bounced back, or didn't.
Well, I mean, first of all, if you choose to become an entrepreneur, you're choosing to be a gladiator in the arena. It is the hardest job in the world. Like, it will mentally wreck you. It will physically wreck you. It's absolutely worth it. But Elon describes it as like eating glass. That's what entrepreneurship is like. And so, both Jess and I have been through all kinds of hell, going after our pursuits of our vision and our dreams for ourselves, our families, and our world. But it's so worth it. So, I mean, there's so many stories, and it would take forever. But I think in terms of learning lessons, I learned quite a bit with WebOS, my first one out of the gate. But I learned a lot also in Hyperloop, which is a company that I started based on Elon's idea. And it really does matter who you recruit, at the earliest stages, and who's around you. So really focus on, the biggest lesson is always focus on excellence. Like at Uber, Travis and I parted really early, and I'll tell the Uber story. I'm not sure.
That would be great. But just for everybody, Hyperloop was basically transforming passenger and commercial, like freight transportation. I mean, It was huge. And at that time, I think Elon was an investor. I'm not even sure he was running Tesla. He was doing SpaceX, but it was early days.
Yeah, he had the idea for Hyperloop, and then we became friends in 2008 because we were both Founders Fund portfolio companies, and we presented at their annual meeting. And I had to follow him, like showing a rocket going up and attempting to go into space at the time. He hadn't made it yet, but. And then I had my iPhone, app company, and it was like, how am I going to follow this? And we were laughing about it. But we became very close, and we would do different kind of trips that I'll also touch on that are important to me in terms of like giving back to the world. So I went during the revolutions in 2010, the Green Revolution in Iran and the Egyptian Revolution, Libyan Revolution. I actually flew to the revolutions. I went to Tahrir Square to meet with the rebels, the protesters, and then I flew to Benghazi in the middle of the bombing of SCET to meet with the rebels. And I was working on what I call freedom technologies. It's like I had this idea back then that we could use satellite to bring internet to countries because dictators always use they block the internet. And I had this dinner with Secretary Clinton and Jack Dorsey and Eric Schmidt, and I said, the last bastion of dictatorship is the router, and so we should use satellites to beam in internet and backpack routers. And she thought it was a great idea, put $50 million of funding at the State Department to make it happen. And so I was going there because Mubarak blocked the internet in Egypt and Gaddafi blocked the internet in Libya, and was looking for ways to fix that. Fast forward 2022, we have Starlink. So I reached out to Elon and was like, hey, these women, Iranian women, are so brave. They're putting themselves out there fighting for their freedom, but they're blocking the internet and they're shooting them and killing them, and we need to help them. So I went and got a bunch of Starlinks, and we figured I figured out how to smuggle it 3 different routes into Iran. There were, when Elon looked it up, there were 9 Starlinks in Iran in 2022, September 2022. And then by the time we finished, it was, you know, thousands of Starlinks. So all those protest videos you see, a lot of those came through Starlinks. And then I introduced Elon to an advisor of mine who introduced him to Zelensky, and they did a Zoom call, and then that led to all of the Starlinks in Ukraine, which have been a game changer for the war. So that ethos of like giving back to the world, it actually started at Berkeley. I started Berkeley Scientific, but then I volunteered with Physicians for Human Rights. There was a group here called that, PHR, when I was thinking about going to medical school. And in Turkey, what they were doing, the project we were working on in Turkey, the government was like arresting the Kurds, and then they were using doctors to torture them. So we did all the research and we published it in JAMA, Journal of American Medical Association. This is why my parents were so upset, because I actually published in JAMA when I was 19 years old. And they were like, "Oh, he's going to Harvard Medical School," and I was like, "Peace! I'm starting my company." But that paper then led to the Istanbul Protocol, which became the UN's protocol for banning doctors from being involved in torture. And that led to the CIA rendition problems in Guantanamo Bay, because CIA couldn't use doctors because of the Istanbul Protocol that started here at Berkeley. And they got into trouble, right? So there's like these little butterfly effects in our lives when you do things that are mission-driven, that combine your love of research, science, technology. And I had that epiphany at Berkeley. I was like, all right, I'm going to start a company, but I want to be an activist while I actually pursue, you know, capitalist pursuits using technology, because I knew those technologies could actually transform not just our productivity, but the structure of our value systems, the structure of our civilization. And now we're in the Super Bowl now. You guys are in the Super Bowl of all of that. Like the next 25, 30 years, 50 years is going to be, buckle up, the most exciting time ever in human history. The greatest value creation ever. There's going to be many, many, many multi-trillion-dollar companies, and there's going to be new nations, new borders, new systems, and you can be the architects of all of that.
It's so interesting listening to you and the amazing things that you've done, and frankly, the people that you've connected with. And so with all of your fascinating ideas and new startups, you talk about the connection with the person, whether it's going to the Rebels, which is so freaking frightening, by the way, or, you know, talking to Elon or talking to Jamie Dimon. It's just, just an observation. Can you, people love to hear about things that didn't go quite according to plan. I'm wondering if you might be able to share anything that didn't go and how you handled that.
Yeah, happy to. But real quick on the point about Shervin, I think why Shervin is so popular with all these incredible people is because he connects with them on a very deep and human level. Like I've watched Shervin at work with like very, very prominent, well-known people you've heard of. Not going to mention their names today, but he understands all of their struggles, their pains, and he's able to help them be seen and figure out alternative, unique solutions to them that no one else is willing to provide to them.
Very kind of you.
That is the common thread, I think, for why you're so good at this.
But it's from like entrepreneurs to politicians to religious leaders. It's fascinating.
He sees them though. He like observes what's going on for them, has unique ideas, but actually connects with them on a personal level every single time. And that's been the most inspiring thing for me to learn from you, more so than any of the business stuff, actually.
And I am going to ask you about this now. And you're not scared.
Scared of what?
Scared to meet with different people.
Oh, no.
I mean, you expose yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking also of Travis.
Yeah. I mean, when we flew into Benghazi, it was I was in Cairo and the protests were happening, but then NATO had basically, it was a no-fly zone over Libya. And so we had to negotiate with the NATO general to get our plane allowed to fly through SCET, which is where they were bombing, and that's where Gaddafi was killed 2 weeks later. And so I flew through the bombing and Sean Penn was with me. It was a funny story, and he's a smoker, and he's smoking on his private jet. And it wasn't our private jet, and it was like he's smoking on it and doesn't care. The guy was the owner of the plane was a friend, so it was fine. But he's like smoking, and he's nervous because there's like bombs going off, and we're flying through, and he goes, "You know what you don't want to hear while you're flying through CERT? Duck." So anyways, I thought that was funny. I didn't hear any laughter, but that's fine.
Everyone's nervous.
Yeah.
Nervous. Nerve-wracking.
Anyway, so we get there and we meet with the ambassador, who was, I think he was a Berkeley grad too.
Yes,
right? Stephen.
was.
Yeah.
Chris.
He was Chris. He was an amazing person, and he hosted us, and we met with these young rebels, and then we flew to Tripoli, and it had been liberated 30 days before. And so there was this young rebel who's an engineer, 20 years old, from Germany. He was Libyan, and he was protecting us. And I was like, "What does freedom feel like? What does it take?" And he was just like, and he got this ecstatic look in his face, and he was just like, "I can't describe it. It's that we've been waiting 50 years for this freedom. It's the same freedom that I hope and pray my people in Iran get to taste, because they've been in prison for 50 years. Literally, they're slaves of this horrible, horrible system." And I think one of the great realizations I've had in my life is like this next 50 years of my life, I want to have impact, not just in terms of like starting companies, but like starting new systems for how we organize human civilization and life. We're right there. And the biggest tax on that happening, on human progress, is that we have allowed basically criminal organizations and terrorist organizations to take over sovereigns with nuclear bombs. From Russia with Putin, that's a criminal organization, to North Korea, to Iran, to many other nations, to many other even democracies that are corrupt. We have allowed that to happen, and the only generation that can actually change that is you. That's it. And until we find a way to stop what's happening, because basically the criminals and the terrorists have figured out, if you can take over the government, no one can arrest you. It's a foolproof plan. And you can own the sovereign money and get all the money and do anything you want. That's what North Korea is, right? And so this is a huge problem. Like all the suffering and wars that's happening in our lives, it's this special pain. Like when you think about this, that we're at the cusp of greatness as a species. We've invented what's going to become advanced superintelligence. 1,000 times more intelligence than human intelligence, and it's going to discover everything. All of these things are going to happen. And at the same time, we have medieval leaders that have taken countries hostage. And until we liberate those people, like in Iran, we will continue to suffer. And that progress will take hundreds of years to reach everyone, versus it should be decades.
That is a very deep place to go and an important place to go. But I also want to bring things a little bit around to entrepreneurship a little bit as well. And I'm sure there'll be student questions on it. But Jess, I don't know if you want to add anything before I open things up to the students for questions, because, the future is you.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's cool about our dynamic is that we're able to just be super honest about like the good, bad, and ugly, and with each other, we're not holding back on secrets. And obviously, I think what it's taught me is that people who, no matter like who you see on the stage, they've all been through a lot of hell, every single person, and they might not share all of that. The fact that Shervin would say it's like eating glass to be an entrepreneur, it's true. And I think most of the problems that I've ever dealt with in business are always people problems on some level. It's like if you just get rid of the people, there'd be no problems, but that's not really how it works. And and yeah, I've been on podcasts. I've been interviewed where I talk about all this stuff, like doing, marriage counseling with a business partner, for example. That was the cover, my Ink cover magazine story. And I think Ink magazine really appreciated that I was so honest about that. And, what I've noticed is that the media, they like to build you up only to tear you down. So an alternative strategy, and I learned this from you, is to just stay more humble and to talk more about problems makes it less likely that you're going to get torn down, actually.
And I don't know if you realize, but we talk all the time. Like I met her in 2010 when she was a senior, and watched her and mentored her as she was building her billion-dollar business, and cheering her along the whole way. And I'm so proud of her. And when she talks about that human connection, that is really important. Like, you can't build massive companies without a tremendous amount of human support, loyalty, hard work, sleeping on the floor, chewing on glass, going through hell, getting depressed, being suicidal. Like, it gets that hard to be able to scale companies and build massive moonshot ideas. And you need a support network, and that's what's so important. Is you can't build a company if you don't actually know how to be a human together and share in the war stories and help each other and support each other. And sometimes you're going to be on fire, and other times your partner or your co-founder is not, and you've got to be able to balance that out. But yeah,
I think it's actually the challenging and tough times that forge those true friendships. And they say, like, when you're going through a downswing, that's really when you know, like, who your true friends are. And I'm just so grateful that every time I've had challenges, it's just brought me closer to people. It's been a gift. And so the opportunity is in seeing, like, all right, this sucks, and I'm gonna get through it, and I've got great friends to support me.
Yeah. I appreciate you all sharing that. And I am curious to know what kind of questions we have from the audience after all this pretty open sharing. Somebody have a microphone yet? Yeah. We'll start over there.
Hi, I'm Marcus. Can you hear me well? I'm Marcus. I'm a senior studying econ and data science. This question's directed toward Shervin. Hearing about your background, it sounds like you had a lot of hardships, like on the financial side, coming to America all the way to starting your first company. I was curious to hear what gave you the courage and conviction to start a company at 22 without a safety net over more established paths like going into med school.
It's a great question. I lost my mother, my beloved mother, Ishat, last December. And she was, any persons in here, like how close we are. We all are to our mothers, but she was a spectacular mother. And the reason I had the courage to not go to medical school and go after my dream was all because of her. She was really the architect of, she taught me to dream in color. She was very entrepreneurial, and she made me believe in myself. I always joke she's my first angel investor because she secretly used her credit card, which would upset my father, to buy me this LG Windows device, little laptop, when I started my first company, and I needed a laptop to start it. And I was, a young dad, and I was working at night as a security guard, the night shift, to put food on the table while starting WebOS before I raised money. But she bought that for me, and I said, "Mom, you're my first angel investor." And then, like, when I was 8 years old, she made me write a contract saying that I would take care of her until she dies, and pretty heavy stuff for an 8-year-old. And then she laminated it and put it on the refrigerator so I would see it every day. And I was like, and I honored that contract all the way to the end. And yeah, I think that courage to, like, I was totally unafraid, and it's not because I was born that way. It's because she instilled that courage and made me believe in myself. And the thing I wrote coming out of Libya was, I wrote this essay because Obama actually had called me as I was flying to, and he said, "Don't do anything I wouldn't do, and wish me luck on the call." And on the meeting, and the call, he said, "Good luck in the meeting, in the trip." And I wrote this thing for him, and I had this epiphany from Mohammed, the 28-year-old engineer, and I wrote it down. It was fear is finite, hope is infinite. And what I realized is, like, they were slaves for 50 years under Gaddafi, suffering. And it was all fear-based. Same thing in Iran, same thing in North Korea, same thing in Russia. There was all fear-based control of humans. And, like, if you do anything, we'll kill you. If you do anything, we'll rape you. If you do anything, we'll put you in prison. So it was all fear-based. And as soon as they lost their fear of Gaddafi, it was over. Fear is finite. Once the fear is gone, it's over. And I remember, as an analogy, as a kid, like, my mom would show me a candle, and she would, like, do these tricks, like, oh, if you put your finger through fast, you're not going to burn. I was like, oh, then I wasn't afraid of the flame. She would also use a match and put it in her mouth, like flame, and put it out. And I thought that was so courageous. But it was all like, oh, I'm not afraid of that anymore. But hope is infinite because, and I actually made this into a mathematical formula. It's like, hope is infinite because if you fail once, you don't get what you want initially, and you try again, the probability of it actually succeeding actually goes up. So there's infinite probability. Just keep trying. And so every time I failed, I never thought, that's it, my life is over. I was like, oh, I just have to try again, all right? And it'll work. So fear is finite, hope is infinite, and that comes from my mom.
I would love it if somebody has a question for Jess. Sorry, Shervin.
Of course.
Yeah, Carson.
Hi, my name's Carson, and I'm curious. I've got a question for both of you. Obviously, now you've made it to the point where you're knowledgeable enough to have these great impacts. For either of you, what do you wish you learned earlier?
I wish I learned earlier how to talk to my mentors about problems in real time. I wanted to fix all of my own problems. And the issue with that is that the problems kind of fester, and, like, when you don't solve like your core team, right? Like, I've had companies where I've had early team members where it's just not been the right team, and I just try to make it work, and oftentimes it just doesn't work that way. You just have to start from scratch and get a new team, or and I think that's a common entrepreneur mistake, right? Hiring the wrong early team and not letting go of them quickly enough. How about you, Shervin?
Yeah, I mean, just to support what you're saying is, like, if the wrong hires, especially when you're just a few people, or 10 people or 20 people, can be very, very disruptive and waste a lot of time. So you have to be very, very careful and do your diligence, do your research, check references, all of those things. So that's absolutely true. In terms of what I wish I learned earlier, we talk about this a lot. It's I'm a very generous person and trusting and so on. So, but when you start to succeed, you get, I wrote this down at one point. It was like, life is about surround yourself with value creators and get rid of the value extractors. And you can see it in people's eyes when somebody wants something from you. There's like a hunger, they want something. That's a value extractor. Value creators you create in a state of generosity, like we are, and other partnerships and friendships where everyone's kind of equals and you're helping each other. But you have to prune your life of the value extractors. Anyone that's kind of trying to extract value from you or use you, you want to be careful and you want to filter it out. I wish I learned that faster, because I wasted a lot of time and energy when I could have been just focusing on the biggest possible things that required my brain and my energy.
I actually have a question before I pass this out. I think a lot of
Turn the
students
mic on.
here. I think a lot of students here want to make an impact in the world, and they don't know where to start. My question to both of you is: how did you develop your conviction and your mission enough to like start a company, solving the problems that you actually care about?
I think it's easy to start on campus actually, because like in my case, picking a student organization or group to get really involved in, that's like leadership right away. That's you're raising money, you're bringing in revenue. Like the Computer Science Undergrad Association was completely broke when I took over. We had no money for anything. The monitors were old and decrepit. The chairs were falling apart. And so my mandate was within one semester, we're going to have such a massive war chest where we've got the biggest, fanciest monitors, Aeron Herman Miller chairs, and enough money for the next 10 years so that the next presidents could totally screw it up and we'll still be okay. Seriously, so we started the internship fair. I brought in all the startups, made them pay money to show up to recruit students for internships. TEDx Berkeley brought in a ton of money to the organization. We had everyone volunteer. We sold tickets, and that paid also for a lot of bills. The hackathon, I gave Zynga naming rights for the hackathon. We were the Zynga hackathon that year because they paid me the most money. Use student groups as your first. It's such a low risk way to get practice. You meet great people, and it buys you time to figure out what to actually build.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like I did that at Berkeley too. Like I started Berkeley Scientific, which was 1990. It's still going, by the way. I couldn't believe it. Like I checked a few years ago, and they're still publishing it. But I was like, we need an undergraduate research journal that is peer reviewed, and we did it. We won a bunch of prizes. I had Nobel Prize winner twice. Nobel Prize winners, Glenn Seaborg, Seaborgium. He was on our board, and he was an amazing man. But yeah, like leverage. You have the best brand. We named it Berkeley Scientific. You have one of the best brands in the world. Use this as your launching pad to do interesting things, incubate new ideas, have impact on the world. There's nothing to lose. You have nothing to lose.
Hello, can you hear me? You guys keep talking about people and attributes, and I want to know specifically what attributes you look for, either to hire or find a co-founder or someone to join in a team. What are the specific attributes?
So in my career, what I'm focused on is finding the next great founders. So I have a filter for that, and it's so far, if you could measure it, it's been working. I've returned like now almost $9 billion, 88% IRR, and all of those returns come from these what I call foundational founders. Elon Musk, Travis Kalanick from Uber, Brian Chesky from Airbnb, Vlad Tenev from Robinhood, and the common trait you'll find in all of them is one of the things I look for. I look for resilience and grit, because you have to be able to go through hell and keep going, and I look for, you have to have a chip on your shoulder, and having a chip on your shoulder doesn't just mean we're poor or an immigrant, or you could be rich and still have a chip on your shoulder and your dad was an asshole to you and tortured you mentally, and you're like, want to prove yourself, like in Inception, right? And it's and so it's not socioeconomic, it's psychological. And so my sister's a PhD in clinical psychology, and my dad was the one that was like, recruit her, and I did, and she's an expert on grit and resilience. So I've been studying this, and another reason why I also do those trips is I'm searching for human behavioral change, and so when I go to Egypt or a revolution in Libya, like it's a laboratory for human behavioral change, and When you look at Uber, that was a completely new behavior. You push a button, like Travis and Garrett invented a completely new behavior using an iPhone in a car and turning the car into a router. And so you want to be able to, identify the founders who invent the new business models that unlock trillions of dollars of markets. Look for the biggest TAM, and the only founders that can actually get to that $1 trillion level are those kinds of exceptional founding founders who have that kind of resilience and grit and vision. But the chip on the shoulder is the most important thing.
I would also add resourcefulness and ability to endure a lot of, this is just resilience in another way, but the willingness and, ability to just take no's, right? Like when you're trying to hire people, raise capital, there's a lot of no's, a lot of negativity. Like Brian Chesky talks about how he pitched so many VCs and they're like, what? You're going to have like a air mattress company where you could just rent an air mattress for the night? Like it sounded really dumb at first, right? And I remember him telling me that story too back in 2010 and 2011. He was another mentor of mine early on. And so even the greatest founders just get rejected all the time. I think it's a myth to think that it was just purely easy for everyone. But I'd say those are the top things.
I'll say one other thing in terms of that's the founders. So you want to be able to figure out if you're one of those, then start a company. If you're not, go work with one of them as an early founding team member, and help them realize that vision. So that's that. The other lesson is like in recruiting people to your team. So let's say you've started your company. Travis and I had this conversation that I got such a kick out of, and we were talking about when we were recruiting people. And I helped recruit a bunch of people, with him early on. People like Emil Michael, who's now Undersecretary of War for R&D. All of DARPA, everything is under him. It was a game-changing recruit. Ed Baker, I recruited. And what I noticed is like people like Travis and Elon are the greatest recruiters in the world. They attract the smartest people in the world, and that's a reason why they become $1 trillion type enterprises, or Jensen, or Larry and Sergey and so on. And so we were having this conversation. It was at his house, and we were talking about recruiting, and he was like, yeah, I look for there's people that can take a company from 0 stage to 10, right? And then there's people that can take it from 10 to 50, and then there's people that can take it from 10 0 all the way to 100. And I was like, how many people do you know that can take it from 0 to 100? And he was like 3. And all of his that's how special those types of people are. Is that you can take it from an idea stage all the way to $1 trillion company. Like he had 3 people. I know Elon has a number of those, and they're core members of all of his companies. But those are the SEAL Team 6s, right? And then I said, who are those 3 people? And we're like best friends. He goes, I'm not going to tell you. Right? Like, isn't that amazing? Like, even to his best friend, he was like, I'm not gonna share that. That's his secret sauce, right? And this is after Uber, so he was like building his next company, and he's very protective and careful. But that kind of competitiveness, there's a level of competitiveness that's at the kind of apex predator, alpha, human level. I call them silverback gorillas. Is like. They're the ones that 1 million years ago you would have seen in the forest and you would have ran for your life, right? Like they're super smart, super competitive, and they're just going to eat you alive. Larry Ellison is one of those, right? And he's like 83, 84 years old, and he's at the top of his game. Like these types of people, they're still going. They're so brilliant, so aggressive. Like him and his son own Paramount. He's about to own TikTok. His company's now $1 trillion company. He survived it all, but it's because he's one of those. So.
I think we can take about 3 more questions, and then I'll post our feedback. But I want to invite you all after I post that. Please feel free to come to the stage and talk to our speakers. All right, next.
Hello there. You both are so incredible at understanding what is happening in the future, where we're going. I have a question for both of you. Do you think that it's still a good idea to go into building SaaS, or do you think that that's going to be kind of abstracted away by AI or no-code solutions?
I'm not as excited about, as it relates to you, for example, building a SaaS company coming straight out of college right now. What I joke with a lot of my YC founder friends. We, go through every Y Combinator. If you're not familiar, accelerator that funded companies like Airbnb.
Yep. Gary's going to come talk to you.
Oh, great. Gary's coming. Okay. So you'll see like 10 companies in a batch doing the same type of AI-enabled SaaS thing right now, and it's just not very inspiring. So, yeah, I'm not excited about you doing that right now. I think you could be more bold. But what do you think, Shervin?
Well, what's your idea? Because you obviously have an idea.
My idea is pretty small, but you told us to go big. What is bigger than maybe this is really small-minded. What's bigger?
Well, let's do an exercise.
Yeah.
Tell me your small idea, and what I end up doing with founders is I find a way to, I call it TAM expansion.
You'll never have this chance again. And we'll all learn.
We'll do it because I want you guys to witness what happens, because every founder will have an idea, and then what I do is I focus what I call TAM expansion. You want to go after the biggest TAM possible. The reason Travis is everyone thought he was doing a taxi company, and they didn't realize he revealed to me he wanted to replace car ownership, and that's when I realized that's $1 trillion market. And I put a $290 million valuation on the company. Everyone thought I was crazy. It's just a taxi company. How could it be worth that? It's only 2,000 cars and $1 million in revenue. That's TAM expansion. So what's your small idea?
It's back-end automation for small service businesses. So for like a cleaning company, or you would route cleaners to which house they need to go to, or you would automate the invoices for the company.
Okay. All right. Let's work with that. All right. That's a good idea. Let's do what I call business.
Me and Jack
Are you the co-founder?
I'm the founder.
Oh, amazing. Okay.
Me and Jack are.
So what's Jack?
So Jack is a COO.
A COO, and then got it. Okay. So you're both
essentially
co-founders.
the idea is that I ran a cleaning company when I was younger, about the past 2 years, and it's a whole lot of headache going on with like sending invoices, routing cleaners, asking for payments, asking for reviews, just a whole bunch of like just bullshit, honestly. And I kind of found a way, or like there is a way to automate the whole entire process with AI, specifically AI agents and just like that sort of like aspect. And we're trying to essentially automate the entire company with AI so that the cleaners can just like click a button, show up to the job, and it could basically be run by like just one operator. And we're going to try to expand that to like HVAC, plumbing, window washing, and then just on service-based companies.
And it's a SaaS business model.
As of right now, we're a service. We're just like a, I guess, agency.
Yeah.
But we're looking into possibly trying to do some sort of productized service or product, but that's kind of like our hurdle, I guess you could say.
All right, I'm excited about this because this is going to be fun. Do you mind if I stand up? Because I'm too excited to sit in here.
Nope.
It's horrible to
Please.
sit. Come over to me, because we can help him figure this out. All right, so what I would do is, it's a great idea, and you're right in the middle of this incredible change in the services market. But the business model innovation I would add to that is, I think what would be fascinating is to take the automation that you're doing using AI and using agents, but then go start rolling up these businesses around the country. Like find the right VCs who will back you. But if you're actually running those businesses better, forget about the SaaS side. Like actually go roll up small business with plumbers, maid services, et cetera. Get their get their actual lists of customers, buy them for cheap, and then ultimately run it using your AI. But if you rolled it up, you would build a multi-billion-dollar services business that's all powered by automation and AI, and you would be able to tap into the right investors who would back you in order to actually roll it up. And there's ways to structure roll-ups that this actually unlocks. So suddenly your TAM went from like, I'm a SaaS business for the service businesses doing automation, AI, and agents, to actually I run the entire business and I roll it up around the country. There's a few people that are working on this right now, and they're making hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue in like 2 to 3 years, in less than 2 years, doing this. So you're right at the cusp. You've got a great idea. It could be not just $1 billion company. It could be a $10 billion platform if you build it right and you surround yourself with the right people. And then on top of that, you got humanoid robots coming, right? Like Figure. And I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I'm working with them, and I think the world of Brett Adcock. But like those robots I saw it, the neural net 90 days ago, less than 90 days ago. It couldn't do laundry, it couldn't do dishes. And humans are training it with 80 hours of training, and it's actually picking up dishes, not breaking them. So suddenly you're like, okay, we're going to use AI, agents, automation, and then we're going to send in a humanoid robot to do it all, and then do that as a SaaS business, like rent it out, right? Gardening, plumbing, like you just update the neural net, and suddenly you have not just one service. You could do anything that anyone needs inside of a home or an office.
Awesome.
Is that good?
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you.
That's pretty good. I got to give it to you, Shervin. I got to give it to you. That's good. That's a great breakdown of this.
Stuff. This is like I live for it. That's cool.
We got one more question. Do we have one?
Yeah. Thanks so much, Jess and Shervin. So I am curious to know. So I'm Cal alum, go Bears, and I'm very much focused on social impact and some of the most important types of moonshots for being able to provide positive impact for people, planet, as well as can be profitable. UC deals come across your desk all the time. I'm sure. And so I'm curious to know, out of those, which ones in terms of technology are you most bullish about that can be $1 billion company that can provide billions of people or can provide positive impact for billions of people?
Okay, so I mean, the area I'm most excited about is everyone's talking about AI, but I've been doing quantum computing stuff for a long time. And I did IonQ, I did PsiQuantum, which is using photonics. And then I started a SPAC platform called DPCM. That was my daughter's initial, and my co-founder, Emil Michael's daughter, and godfather to Coco Michael. So we went to look for a quantum computing company, and I found D-Wave Quantum, which was the oldest quantum computing company in the world. We took it public. SPAC market was horrible. Stock went down to like 100 million. And I was like, damn. And and I tweeted, I was like, they're underappreciating the impact of quantum. Quantum, and then just fast forward, this week it hit 9 billion market cap. So, and I tweeted like 2 years ago, this is undervalued. And if you had put $10,000 in, 2 years ago, it would be worth 600,000. If you put 100,000, it would be worth $6 million. That's the kind. It was like 5,800% return, and that's just the beginning of quantum. Quantum is just at the beginning of its impact on the world. So anyone here that is doing any kind of quantum computing research, or like, come talk to me. And it has ideas in that space, because basically you at 1 million qubits, which PsiQuantum will get to, you're going to have the power of God, and you'll be able to solve problems that would take us 1 billion years in like hours, days. So and then it's going to be agentic scientific discovery. Like we're gonna create and invent new materials, and it's going to transform our entire world. So that's the area I'm most excited about.
Have you done much with all the brain control interface companies? Or I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited about the convergence of AI and healthcare/biotech. Lots of bold bio companies that come across my desk on a daily basis. And one of my strategies for seeing more things is that I'm just like a free venture partner for a bunch of my friends' funds. And so I see all the deal flow they get, and I bring in a bunch of stuff to them, and they tell me, oh yeah, I've seen like 20 other companies like this, and here's why I love it or hate it. And so yeah, I feel like I'm just doing a lot of free labor for friends. Still.
I just want to support what you're saying. The BCI, brain computer interface space. There's science, which Max Hodak did. There's Neuralink, which Elon did. And I don't know if you've seen the videos, but like people are controlling their computers that have are paralyzed with their brains with this chip. Yeah. And it's the beginning of connecting the human brain to what will ultimately be advanced superintelligence driven by AI, driven by quantum. So we're going to be able to tap into this advanced intelligence right into our brains and be able to download skills, information, all of that. So that's the beginning of what I think is speciation. Like after Homo sapiens, there will be something else that's a hybrid between humanoid robots and humans, and connecting the neural net between our brains and that advanced intelligence.
I think also when we're able to control our own, when we can control our brain, our endocrine system, and tap into this feeling of when you're confident, you're peaceful, you just feel good. And that's ultimately what we're all looking for, and having the technology to just get to that state and stay there constantly, how amazing would that be? To manage your cortisol in real time, instead of having a cortisol spike, having the technology to keep that managed at the appropriate level, that's what I'm really excited about when I say future of healthcare. And I think we could have that within our lifetime.
One last thing I'll say in terms of what I'm excited about is with all of the AI, quantum, all of the technological things that are happening is great. But the thing that is our greatest differentiator as humans is our ability to feel emotion, love, empathy, right? Emotional intelligence. And ironically, as advanced superintelligence happens, the value of human empathy and human emotional intelligence is going to increase. Studying engineering is great to be able to interface with that advanced intelligence, but studying the humanities and our humanity will actually be even more important. And so, looking for ideas where you're building bridges between these advanced, technologies and humanity is really important. And yesterday, I went on a podcast. I flew in at 5 a.m. today to come here for you guys. And it was in Boulder, and I went to announce with Kimball Musk, Elon's brother, that I led a $50 million round in his company called Nova Sky Stories. And what he does is he uses AI, automation, and drones to paint beautiful stories in the sky using drones, right? And ultimately, we're gonna do movies in the sky on screens a mile wide in the sky. And did you guys see the Vatican show with the drones and Pharrell and all that happened this weekend? I was there, and that was his company. That was his idea. He proposed it to the Pope, and met with the Pope Francis, and he approved it. And then unfortunately he passed away, and he proposed it to the new Pope, and he also loved the idea. And there were 300,000 people at the Vatican. First concert ever in 2,000 years there, and it was that was the perfect convergence of exactly what I'm talking about, is connecting AI, automation, and human stories and narratives. And what he talks about is cracking the human heart open. There wasn't a dry eye at the Vatican when Pope Francis's face went up and different images went up. People were emotional. And that's a beautiful thing. So lean into that. If you're in the humanities, find bridges to be made with your fellow technologists, because it's gonna be a massive need in the world. Inspiration.
Shervin and Jess, I thank you for sharing your humanity and the connections with all of us. I know students will come up and have questions. I've posted a link for everybody also, so I can give feedback to these incredible speakers. Don't forget, also, you need to register for class. We are not meeting as a class here, but you will be on a webinar next week. We'll open this classroom up to others who are not in this class. They will not be able to ask questions, but we'll have a live showing. It is just getting better and better this semester. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. This was an honor.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.